right, welcome everybody to my session about deploying code to your colleagues with Azure DevOps. First and foremost, this isn't the first time, this isn't the last time. Can I get a quick round of applause for our sponsors, please? You know why. They make organization, the life of the organizers much more easy and provide stickers, of course. So who am I to talk to you today? My name is Jelle de Graaf. You might hear that I'm from the Netherlands with that accent. I work for OGD ICT-dienst, an IT service provider in the Netherlands. And I currently work as a DevOps engineer, automating stuff for my colleagues, not for customers. Things I love, automating, okay, PowerShell. That's what we're here for, and gaming on every available platform, including PowerShell, by the way. See my community demo tomorrow if you're interested in that. If you want to hook up, if you want to link, you can find me on LinkedIn. I don't do X. Right. So 5 years ago, when I looked a little bit different, is where this origin story starts. I worked in the same team as I did now, and we had this application. This application consists of a few PowerShell scripts run by Azure pipelines. And we needed to distribute this application to our customer teams to use with our customer environments. And to do so required the deployment, and that had some issues. We had to take a lot of manual steps. Because at first, for someone to make use of the application, people had to manually import our repository. The code had to come from somewhere. Then they had to manually register the pipelines in there. Then manually create a service connection if there was one required. And finally, set all the pipeline permissions to actually let them run. That's a lot of manual steps. And I don't know about you people. I have a guess, but when I hear the word manually, I get red itchy dots in my neck, and I really like to prevent that. So we came up with the solution, and the solution was a PowerShell script, of course. We created the script to do all that manual work for us. So far, so good. But then, when you have an update for the application, maybe there's a patch or a new feature, again, people had to import the code. And while all the pipeline registrations are already done, it's still a manual step. Prevent it again, this time by taking that script and letting it run centrally every half hour. And give people the option to, automatically update, or just sync it once and forget about it, and update manually if they choose so. Perhaps people want to have a bit more control about when they receive their updates. That's fine too. Meet Aqueduct. That's what I'm talking about today. That's our name for it. It's connecting pipelines. What's a good name? We always like to name our stuff fancy. Aqueduct was it. It's a tool to synchronize files on Azure DevOps, and is specifically designed to synchronize pipelines. This can synchronize from any repository in our organization to any other repository in our organization. For those with a security mindset who just got a heart attack, yes, any-to-any is a big security risk. You can imagine someone without proper access rights to a certain repository using Aqueduct to get files from there and gaining some information they shouldn't have to. Perhaps a sensitive customer data or a top secret repository for your colleagues. That's unwanted. The other way around might even be worse. If someone has code and can push that to a repository they aren't allowed to, and they put it in a pipeline and they put a schedule on that pipeline, you effectively have a remote code execution scenario. That might be even worse. So we had to mitigate that. And with that, we restricted the sources and we restricted the destinations. The sources by placing one single text file on a source repository. So when Aqueduct wants to synchronize something from a repository, it checks for this file. We call it aqueduct_allowed.txt. In the TXT, it's just some end user text saying don't remove this. Look here for documentation about this project. But without that file, Aqueduct will not synchronize. The destination used to be fillable in our early days when we were young and rash. But we removed that. There's no longer the option in the central configuration file we call aqueduct.json to place a destination. The destination is always the same repository as this aqueduct.json file. So we are sure you can write stuff to that repository because you need to place that file there or edit it. Then it's okay to target it with an Aqueduct synchronization. Next problem. Yes, full of problems. When you synchronize a pipeline and you put a schedule on it, and you register it remotely, it's active immediately, or at least when the schedule starts, when it hits its timer, it will start. That can be okay, but it can be confusing. This one time we had this bunch of pipelines, and we synced it to many customer projects, but it needed some configuration. It needed some customer data. It's about a log file or a key vault which needed to be filled out. But that needed to be done after the synchronization, and it also started every hour. So quickly after we distributed throughout the organization, people started having errors in the logs. That sucks. So we put a lid on it by not by default registering the pipeline registrations and make it an opt-in option. So you can toggle it on or off. If you sync the pipelines, you can choose to register them or choose not to. Then one day, security came knocking on our doors, and we thought, "Oh crap!" We knew what we did. We did create a possible security risk because, well, files from one side to the other, it's something that can be abused. Luckily, it wasn't about teaching us how not to do things. It was about a feature request. Every now and then, the security department needs to react to something. There's a threat coming out, and people, they want to scan for a threat, or maybe give a manual to our customer teams saying you should do this to see if this vulnerability is possible on your customer side. Whatever the response, they would like a channel to distribute that to our customer teams, and they choose this Azure DevOps solution. So now whenever there's a response necessary, they fill their repository, and that gets distributed to all our customer teams. But I just said we disabled pushing to repositories you aren't allowed to. So we had to fix that. We reinstated that functionality, but we did we cut it out with good reason. So we took two countermeasures. It only works for the security department, and it only works for one specific repository for the security department. So only in this specific repository, if they place files there and they say Aqueduct go, it will sync. And this is protected by branch policies. So whenever there's a pull request adding things or removing things from that repository, it needs to have at least one reviewer. So there's the 4 eyes principle of any changes. This was okay by them, so it was okay by us. Why is Aqueduct cool? Do you think it's cool? Do I need to talk more? I'll talk some more. Yes, I do. It saves manual work. There's a lot of manual steps required to do it manually, of course, and this will take that away. It scales very well. You can do this for one project, and it's probably overkill for that. We do it for 50 projects, and you could do it for 500. As long as you keep your app service plan scaled with the amount of work it needs to do, it can scale. Dare I say infinite? It's probably not infinite, but it can scale very well. And we noticed multiple use cases when we already had a tool. We started building this for one use case. We had this application and we needed to distribute it. And then when we had the tool, we saw more use for it. This security use case I just told you about came upon our doorstep. There's an environment. We have a script runner-like environment in-house. And it's run by pipelines. So all the pipelines in that environment get distributed to our customer teams with Aqueduct. We have a small toolbox because we're the maintainers of Aqueduct. We like to keep check on the agents or be able to do things with it. And we distribute a script that can update a certain PowerShell module on your agents, for example. So all these things came in extra, and I wouldn't be surprised if we find out more uses for this in the future. This is Aqueduct. Don't try to read it. You can't. I'll zoom in. There's a source project on the left, a destination project on the right, and a whole lot of Aqueduct in the middle. The source project requires two things. Something to synchronize, obviously, mostly files and pipelines. And an Aqueduct allowed.txt. Like I said before, Aqueduct will only sync if the source directory, the source repository has this file. So you need that too. Then on the other side, that's the destination. That just requires one thing, and that's the aqueduct.json. That's the central configuration file for our end users. The only thing they need to make use of Aqueduct is get this file, place it on the repository, and edit it to their needs. Then there's Aqueduct itself. It's an Azure function, a function app with two functions inside. At first, there's the timer trigger. It triggers every 30 minutes, but it can be any value that makes sense. It scans the organization and sees what work needs to be done. It creates single messages for every synchronization that needs to be happening, and it puts it in a storage queue. And from there, the queue trigger picks it up. We use this twofold setting mostly because of parallelism. If you do this all in one big function, it will run, but it will take some time. But if you use it like this, your queue trigger, if it can spawn multiple processes, you can do it simultaneously with 5 or 10 or however much you like, and it will run faster. When the files have been synchronized, there are some things happening. I don't know if everybody knows, but a Azure pipeline consists of two things. It's a YAML file and the pipeline object. Those are two different things. The YAML file is the configuration, which says run this, do this script, whatever tasks. And the actual pipeline object is the thing that starts. If you go to the GUI and start a pipeline, that's the pipeline object, and it's fed by the YAML file. The sync first copies the YAML file and then registers the pipeline. It can also register any shared service connections it needs or shared agent pools. That's high over, but there's more in depth. The timer trigger. It first scans the entire organization and looks for aqueduct.json files. It searches the entire organization of my company, and that's by design. Any aqueduct file gets read. Any sync relations, because one aqueduct.json file can consist of multiple sync relations. You can sync from there or from there, all in one file. Makes one sync job from every sync relation, checks its validity, and pushes it to the storage queue, and it looks like this. This is just the content of the aqueduct.json. And after the checks, it's ready to go to the queue trigger. I'll go into detail a bit later. Then the queue trigger picks it up. It looks at all the files that need to be copied. It looks at the destination and sees if the files are already there. If they are there and you don't have a forced sync, it will skip. It's just a check to see if the file is there, no content or hashing or whatever. It's a simple check. If you force, it will always sync. Then it will register the pipelines, register the service connections, the agent pools, and make sure that the rights are in place. It can also set the rights. If you have a wrapper template construction where you have a wrapper pipeline, difficult to talk, a wrapper pipeline which will start a template pipeline in some other project, you need rights to do that. It can set it as well. That's how it works in theory, and I think it's pretty cool. Let's see how it works in practice. Please, demo gods, be nice. I sacrificed 4 kittens for you today. Here is my did I say that out? Here is my source project, and it has an Aqueduct allowed.txt because otherwise it would not sync at all. Is this readable in the back, by the way? Yes, everybody? Okay. Shout out if you can't see it, and I will zoom. And it has a few files, just bogus demo files saying hello world. These are the interesting ones. A pipeline that says hello world. Cool. Then there's the destination repository with nothing inside except for an Aqueduct, okay, demo.json, which says what it does. We'll still get back in here a little bit later. As you can see, there are no pipelines at this moment. Nope. Here is my function. It's the timer trigger, which will usually start every 30 minutes, but now I do it manually. So let's go. Run. If this says accepted, it's okay. I would really like this pane to disappear after I press run, because now I'm... did I push it? Is it running? Is it okay now? Okay, I'll just close. I needed to talk like that because this needs to refresh. And it doesn't always, but let's have a look at the storage queue. If we are lucky, we can catch it in here. If we are not lucky, we cannot catch it in here. I think we already missed it, but you saw a screenshot of it earlier. And then there's the queue trigger. And it's still not here. The demo goals require more kittens. Crap. I really needed to take care of that. Let's try it again. Like a normal end user. If it doesn't work, press print again.
Click harder.
Click harder. Okay. Thanks. Nice. This doesn't always show up because it gets in here and it can disappear pretty quickly, but this is the message in the storage queue. So this is what the timer trigger sends to the queue trigger, and in this demo it's only one, but in our production environment it's 56-ish. And then yes, this is nice. So what? Okay, I'm just gonna look at the result and see what happens. Here's my destination, and if I refresh, at least the sync happened. So there's files, there's that. All the things in there are there, and let's see if the pipelines and this actually happened as well. I think that the error was because the first try actually happened but didn't show up, and now there's a pipeline already in place and it wants to register it again, and that's what the error is about. So here in my my folder application, there's 2 pipelines, and let's see if they actually work, because it would be awkward if they wouldn't. There's a job. I love it how if you really quickly go to your job output, it says error communicating with the cloud, and it just say you didn't try it yet. It's not an error. It's a personal gripe. So there we go. Hello world. So this pipeline has just run in my destination repository, my destination project, after a sync from a source. Is that cool? Because it went so quick, I didn't have time to see what we would have expected. This is the content of aquaduct.json. It has source stuff. the project, the repository, and the path from where you want to synchronize. It has a destination, but not a destination project or repository, because, like I told you, it's not allowed. Well, it is allowed to put in a destination, but if it's not the same destination as your Aqueduct JSON, it will generate an error and skip. Here's the build folder. That's the folder where the actual pipeline object resides in. So what I showed you here, this is the build folder. It's something different than your repository folder. It's not the same. I would strongly advise calling it the same, because if you have a whole lot of pipelines with their respective objects, their YAML files, and if you call this Azure Pipelines 1, Azure Pipelines 2, Azure Pipelines 3, you'll have a hard time correlating which file belongs to what pipeline. So repository folder and build folder, both called application, including everything, just an asterisk here, excluding nothing, didn't feel like it for this demo. Update content means if you already have synced it, just sync it again. There might be some changes, some upgrades, bugs, fixes, whatever. I like to be on the bleeding edge. Put it to true. If you want to have more control about when updates arrive, put it to false, and it will just run once for your repository because it's the first time, and then it will leave it alone until you manually update it or set it to true. Register pipelines, the important one, it's set to true because otherwise I'd still have to manually do that. And authorize the repository, didn't do anything in this demo. But if there's a remote repository where you need to start a template pipeline, this does that for you. So that's the sync. Any questions? Nope, it's not the end. Don't worry.
If you're working with DevOps and pipelines, why do you move into using a job function rather than using a pipeline?
Good question. That's something Sorry, thank you for noting that. The question is if you use technology to move files, to synchronize files on pipelines, why don't you use a pipeline for this instead of an Azure function? Like I said, good question. Not something I prepared for because I wasn't there when it was made and I don't know the decision making. Can I really quickly think of something why we would like a function? This might have to do something with the parallelism again. That function will handle that quicker than a pipeline. I'm not 100% sure though. Functionally, you can do it. Okay, I told you about some problems, about some challenges, and there's also a few pitfalls I'd like to share with you, because if you want to try this for yourself, be aware of this. This uses an account, an identity. We use a personal access token for this, and this token has a lot of rights. It has read and write access to all our repositories. I see Barbara now. Does it have? Okay, we need to talk about that. That's by design for us. We like to have this as a blanket application. So any project which wants to participate in this can just fill out an Aqueduct.json and off they go. We don't need additional rights. That's a usability thing we like. If you do this for yourself, you might want to scope it. You might want to say, okay, these 10 projects or projects with these names, they can synchronize, and we hand out rights to the account for that, and otherwise don't. Always have security in mind with that. Then lock it away. Make sure it's somewhere in a key vault or something like that, and make sure nobody ever logs in with it manually, because it has more rights than any person should have. Nice bridge there. Always keep your security standards high, because this possibly can create a massive security risk. Like I said before, if people are allowed to place software somewhere and execute it, it's a problem. If people can get files from a repository they aren't allowed to, that can be a problem. So this can be a shortcut, but make sure it's only a shortcut for the things you want to. And keep in mind that pipelines that are provided with a schedule will run when they are registered whenever the schedule hits. So if you don't want unwanted calls from your administrator saying, well, I just synchronized this and now I got all these errors. Yeah, read the manual for that one specific pipeline and then you see you have to configure it and then it will run well. All right. To recap, Aqueducts can synchronize files and register the pipelines with those files that are inside the YAML objects. It can register all the required components, so it will run straight away without any further configuration. It runs an Azure function app, or two actually, one function app with two functions. And make sure, I can't stress this enough, your security is maintained. Always have that in mind. It has a flexible end-user configuration with this one file where end users can put their entire configuration, and that's it. It's just this one file, no overhead for anyone. And as a result, you have very easy software deployment for your internal customers. This works like a charm for us on a daily basis, and with that, it might work for you too. And with that, I thank you for your time. Speaking about time, we do have time for questions. Yes.
Where can I get it?
The question is, where can I get it? You can work for us. And if you do, the problem with this is I am not allowed to share its entirety because of intellectual property. This is more like, look, it's a blueprint, you can build it yourself. But I can show you some of the code after all the questions have been answered. And perhaps that's interesting for everybody. So let's see if there are more questions, and then I will give a quick code demo. Yes, in the back.
Why do you not use the service bus for the function queuing?
What would be the question is, why do you not use a service bus for the queuing? What would you gain from that instead of a normal queue? True. I don't have a good answer for that. Probably for simplicity's sake. It works. It runs every 30 minutes at this point for us. And if something fails, there's a good chance in 30 minutes it will work. And we don't have any problems with retries. So it's probably just a practical thing. It was designed for simplicity, never encountered something that would solve. So we let it be. All right. Further questions? Yes.
What is your roadmap or wish list?
The question is, what is my roadmap or wish list? At this moment, we don't have any active roadmap. So we maintain this and it's good. Like I said, we did encounter some more use cases emerging and we are happy to oblige. But we're not actively developing new features now. There's it's pretty scary. There was an update a week ago and I included that in my demo. So I'm really glad everything worked out. We rewrote it largely. And we try to improve it, but no features on the roadmap yet. All right. Yes.
All done through the API?
Sorry, is it?
Done through the DevOps API.
Yes, this is mainly done through the DevOps API. The question was, is it done through the DevOps API? Sorry, I keep forgetting to repeat the question. We wrote a lot of wrapper scripts around it. I will show the invocation of the wrapper scripts, and that's as far as I am allowed to go. The API endpoints are pipelines, build, and one more, pipelines, build, and Git. That's the three endpoints we use to do all this.
Sorry, follow-up question.
It's okay.
Does it then go through and create PPIs or tasks or things as well when it runs successfully?
What kind of tasks are you talking about?
You actually have a successful one of it. It could, in theory, then go through and make a PBI or a task on the board somewhere.
What is a PBI? Backlog item. Check. The question is, when it runs, does it do anything else? Make a backlog item, for example. No, it does not. We monitor it through a monitoring channel, and it creates a Teams message on there if there's something wrong. We could create a backlog item. We do that with other technologies, but the Teams channel suffices for us at least. But you certainly can, yes. Yes, Leo.
When it's syncing the files, it can also at one point overwrite existing files, right?
Correct.
Will this show up in our Git history in this specific repository we're syncing to?
Yes, because it does actually sync. So it overwrites it and it will show in your history. Repeating the question, of course. When syncing and when it overwrites a file that's already there, will it show up in my Git history? And the answer was yes.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Of course.
Will the Git messages in the repositories where it's synced to be the same as Git messages in the original repositories, or will it be different Git messages then, or commit messages?
The question is, will the commit messages will be the same as in the source repository, and the messages will be different? It will create its own commit messages. All right. Any more, or code time? Code time. One more.
On top of the question for the Git remark,
Yes.
you also use version tagging or lifting up the lights to make sure that you have the identical version in the source as.
No, we don't use. The question is, wow, this is hard. I have this microphone. I was told not to use it, but now I don't understand why. The question is, what was the question? I talked a lot. Yes. Do you use any Git version tagging? Is there anything to make sure you have the same version on the source as the destination? The answer is no. It's a simple file synchronization. We only check if the file is present. It could be something different entirely. We don't have the need for that. It's an internal tool, and it doesn't need to be extremely robust. So it's only checking for file names. Okay. Well, if that's the last question, yeah, cool. Okay. Let's see. VS Code. Readable in the back. Readable in the back. How much time do we have? Plenty. This is my repository, and it starts with the timer trigger. It has well, let's just do it. Let's say this is my destination. It should have files now. Let's delete it. And there's pipelines there. Let's delete those too. So no pipelines, no files. Well, one, but that's supposed to be there. Let's just run the code. Write information. Okay, I'll start with the interesting bits. This is one of our custom functions. We have this project called Omnibus, and that's where the prefix Omni comes from. And with that project, we have a lot of wrappers among API calls. It makes our lives much easier. Unfortunately, I can't show you what's in there. It's an API call to the Azure DevOps API at some endpoint. This will search for Aqueduct files and put them in the variable. If I press the correct key. There we go. There's one text file. And then with this, it will put that text file in every hit will get into this array. And with this demo, it's only one. So here's what I need to do. It will, sorry, it's just master. There's already a work item on our backlog to include main. And for this demo, I wanted to do that really quick, and then it broke. So it's just for the master branch at this moment. It will process them all. And let's see. Oh, perhaps a nice trick. I learned this by looking at someone typing while giving a demo, and I thought I didn't know that trick. So maybe if there's at least one person in the audience who didn't know this, it'll help. When I walk through code and run it line by line. Every now and then you come upon a for each loop, and I want to fill this variable with the first instance of this one. Sounds familiar? Yes. Before I used to do $file is JSON files 0. But now I learned if I do this, I put a closing bracket here and then just execute this line and then remove it again. It has filled with the last object is run through. And if it doesn't matter which one you have or if it's only one like this, it just fills. Who here didn't know that? Okay, cool. So I do matter. Let's run this. Content needs to be filled. So this will take the actual content from the aqueduct.json file and put it in here. And it's in there. There you see, this looks like the aqueduct.json, aqueduct.demo.json file, just in an object now. So again, filling it up. It's nice to be readable from the audience, but it's really hard if you go through your code in such a resolution. This is what I'm looking for eventually, a message to put into the queue. So I'm going to fill it now. And then if you're a member of our security department and have this repository and the project is called like that, you go through this. If you are not in, it's a double denial. It's ORs and not equal to. So the security department skips this, and the rest goes through this, and it will say, if you have a destination configured, I'll throw it away. I'll make it the destination of your aqueduct.json file. I'll just do it to make it clean, but it doesn't do anything. So my message is still this one job. Then, is Aqueduct allowed present? Because that's important. Yes, it is. It has a count of 1 in here. So there's, you can see, there's 1 Aqueduct allowed for this instance, and 1 is enough. It's 1 file. So we are allowed to sync. That's cool. There's a schema validation here. Is your JSON correct? Yes, it is. And then it's going to place the message in the queue with the push output binding. That's an Azure, it's a function app thing. I will do it manually now. The message goes to something called synchronization. So I need to fill synchronization with message. That's the end of the timer trigger. It has created now for this demo 1 synchronization and puts it in a queue or a variable because I'm not an Azure function. And now the queue trigger can pick it up. At first, there's a hack. We have since the update, we have a little thing with capitalization. For some reason, it staggers on capitals now, so we convert it all to lower cases until it's a patch. We need to fix it still, but that's there, and I'm going to execute it. Right information. Okay, this is a bit of boilerplate, putting things in the correct variables. We need to format the file path because sometimes there's an issue with slashes and backslashes running on Linux or Windows, and to prevent all that, we give it a nice format. See if the destination project even exists. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Oh, yes. And sorry, the source. And the source repository, does it exist? It does. And please give me the files that are in there. Here's the source repository files. We can have a better view of that. Oh, sorry, it's it's multiple. So there's the pipeline 1 and 2 and the scripts. It's 5 files in here. If you have include filters, apply them here. I'm going to skip that part. It's not the most interesting thing, unless someone thinks so. Include filters and exclude filters. You have this root folder, and by design you say everything in this root folder and below, just sync it. And if you have your include filters, you can say, I want this. Sorry, the root folder says this is where you start. It's your root path, and then your include filters say this file, this folder, and etc. Your exclude filter subtract from that. Leo, you have a question? Okay. It was the 5-minute countdown. Thank you. So the filtering happens for quite a bit. There we go. Splatting. Who doesn't like splatting? Keeping you awake. Here's a big splat to finally use the sync function. And let's see if this works. Drum roll. There we go. They arrived. One step further, we also synchronize. Register the pipelines. Same way up. And let's have a look. Look, it's pipelines. If there's a shared service connection, it will create that as well, because we don't have that here, so I'm going to skip that. Same goes for a shared agent pool. It's really handy. With our use case, every customer team has its own project, and all those projects have their own agents, their own agent pool. But if there's a central agent pool that's specifically designed to do some task because it has a nice skill up system or certain features on the agents that aren't regular, you can use a shared agent pool, and Aqueduct will solve that for you too. And that's the end. Is it the end? Yeah, it's right information, so it doesn't go to my console. There. Yes, it's the end. It's finished. That's Aqueduct synchronization by code. Do you like it?